Okay, you made it. You made it to the show. Big J Report and the Teal Shirt Report podcast. Thank you absolutely so much for being here. This is Big J Report. I'm Scott with Big J Report, and we're going to talk about the Teal Shirt Report podcast, episode show number 18. Like it said in the description, the NFL draft is approaching. It'll be at the end of this month. Depending on when you watch this video podcast, of course, we do update the audio versions eventually. I was really happy. The audio version of the podcast is well over 11,300 listens, and you can find us on our website at bigjreport.com. Jumbo shrimp have been hot. I haven't really been following them or covering them as much as we normally do, but all of a sudden the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, man, they got rained out. There was some rain. There was some big time rain, and gosh, what night was that? That was Friday night. I ducked into a pizza place and grabbed a pizza, and it was raining. My pizza box got all wet, but it was raining on Friday night. The Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp got rained out at home. And then they played, what's termed as a rare doubleheader. I think they play 7 innings a game in the minor leagues when they have a doubleheader. And lo and behold, the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp won both games against the Charlotte Knights at home. And the ballpark is now called, I believe it's now called ViStar Ballpark, I believe. We got the arena. ViStar's got the arena. They got the ballpark. There's been a lot of improvements to the baseball park. I've got to get down there. The Shrimp went into that doubleheader with a 9-3 record. Now they're 11-3. They got some pitching apparently. They beat Charlotte in the first game 4-3, and then the makeup game was the nightcap because it all started around 5:05 in the afternoon. Shrimp win 4-3, and then the second game 3-1. And all of a sudden, the Jumbo Shrimp, by the way, subscribe to our channel. We're going to talk mainly about the Jags and North Florida entertainment, but all of a sudden, the Jumbo Shrimp I can't really fathom this. They're 11-3. How about the Icemen? They've clinched an ECHL playoff spot in the East Coast Hockey League playoffs. They're having a great year too. The Jumbo Shrimp's having a good year. The Icemen have had even a better year, and they'll be in the East Coast Hockey League playoffs. I was going to try to pull up. Well, I could pull it up, but I might mess up the. We're kind of hanging in there on a spool of yarn right now at BigJReport.com, trying to nurse the old laptop here. I've got another laptop if we have to replace this one. So we got another laptop waiting in the wings. And I've got to find my other laptop too, or we might have to even make another purchase of a laptop. But either way, the show must go on, right? Big J Report. And you see our Teal Shirt Report logo in the top right-hand corner. I have been minimized. I'm just kind of experimenting with the different things you can do in regards to our podcast. We've been going through StreamYard. Now we're a little bit more premium on StreamYard with the Teal Shirt Report logo in the top right-hand corner. I'm Scott with BigJReport.com. Jacksonville Icemen are really hot, playing good hockey. They've won over 40 games. They really have. And let me see. Everybody in the Philippines got an egg and pork sandwich. That sounds pretty good, right? My wife said, well, I only had a piece of bread to eat. And then I investigated further. It was pork and egg on inside the bread. So I had to tell my wife, that's a sandwich. It's not just a piece of bread. Um, so so here we are with the Teal Shirt Report podcast episode show. As you know, episode show number 18. The Icemen are playing well. They really are. There's been semi-pro football, the underworld of semi-pro football, the Port City Vikings 30, Panama City Panthers nothing. A final on Saturday, April the 12th of 2025 in the APDFL League. I always want to call him Champ Summers because that was a baseball player. Champ Samuels had 3 tackles in this game. Champ's like the veteran player on this team, so he's like a coach on the field. He probably would have had more tackles, but he said he had some cramps in the game. He's been bothered or hampered by cramps. I told him, you got to eat some bananas. That's what Randolph Clay football coach Jim McFather and his team do, especially in the late August and early September games in high school football. But it was a little bit cool on this night. Champ was able to get out there. He's like a coach on the field, big defensive tackle. Champ Samuels had 3 tackles in this game. A solid defensive performance by Port City in semi-pro football. They're in the area of Mobile. The game was played in Mobile. Port City's defense got a shutout in semi-pro football, what I call the underworld of semi-pro football. Port City Vikings 32, Panama City, Florida Panthers nothing. A final score on Saturday, April the 12th of 2025 in the APDFL Football League. As far as the Icemen go, they've been playing good hockey. They beat, just the other night, they beat the Savannah Ghost Pirates. I believe it was 3-1. So the Icemen playing well. The East Coast Hockey League playoffs are getting ready to start. And I believe it's in the upcoming, in just the next few days. And the Icemen clinched their playoff spot a few days ago. They're now 42. Is that right? 42, 21, and 7. That's a heck of a record. That is an absolute heck of a record. Jacksonville in third place in the 7-team Southern Division of the East Coast Hockey League. I mean, I think there's like 28 teams in this league, about 4 different divisions. So it's a big minor league, ice hockey league, East Coast Hockey League. It's probably equivalent to maybe AA baseball, where the AHL is probably like AAA of the hockey. But the Icemen are now 42, 21, and 7. They've had a great year, 92 total points. And they'll be in the playoffs along with other teams like the South Carolina Stingrays, the Florida Everblades, a real nemesis of the Icemen. And I believe in the 4th position, Orlando, the Solar Bears, have clinched a playoff spot as well. Last game I remember, the Icemen won a couple of days ago, beat the Savannah Ghost Pirates 3-1. So you are absolutely tuned in to the Teal Shirt Report podcast. JC, we're saluting number 18. That would be Peyton Manning, right? Who won a couple of Super Bowls, one with the Colts, one with the Broncos, but he never won the SEC. He never won the Heisman Trophy. I guess you'd have to say Peyton Manning had really a much more successful career in the NFL than he did in college. So I want to salute Peyton Manning, number 18. If anybody else can think of any other 18s, let me know. Roman Gabriel, he was probably one of the first quarterbacks I ever watched when I was a kid, probably 6, 7 years old. And I always told our executive producer, JC, about this. But, hey, JC, I pulled up this game was from 1970 at Orchard Park in Buffalo. This was a Buffalo Bills home game. I actually pulled up the Buffalo Bills season from 1970. The Bills lost to the Broncos 25-10 in week 1. Then they played the Rams. This game was on TV in Jacksonville when I was a kid, probably 6 or 7 years old. Was that set? And the season started. I mean, the season didn't start till, the regular season didn't start till September the 20th back then. And the preseason was much longer. What did they have back then? It was a 6-game preseason, 14-game regular season. And the Rams defeated the Buffalo Bills 19-0 in Orchard Park way back on September the 27th of 1970. Roman Gabriel was the quarterback of record for the winning Rams. The LA Rams 19, the Buffalo Bills 0. Let me repeat that. The LA Rams 19, the Buffalo Bills nothing. Way back September the 27th, week number 2, that way back in 1970, Dennis Shaw. I speak of Dennis Shaw to JC. He was not a quarterback with Buffalo too long. He might have been there a couple of years, 1 or 2 years, I believe. So Roman Gabriel, number 18, was quarterbacking the Rams, one of the first quarterbacks I really liked watching play football. And about that same timeline, I liked number 7, John Reeves with the Florida Gators. These were the guys I really followed very, very early in my life. Roman Gabriel got traded, and the coach moved too. George Allen was coaching the Rams when I was watching the Rams, and Roman Gabriel, number 18. I know George Allen moved from the Rams and started coaching the Washington Redskins way back in the early mid-1970s. Roman Gabriel got traded to the Eagles a couple of years after this game, and then he switched. When he was with the Eagles, he switched to number 5. He was wearing number 5, kind of like Blake Bortles, right? But number 18, I'll always remember Roman Gabriel wearing the Rams number 18 jersey. Peyton Manning. I pulled up a photo on Peyton Manning the other day. Let me see here. We pulled up Peyton Manning. I have to pull up these photos just to make sure I'm saying the right number, right? Peyton Manning, photos, Colts. He wore number 18. That was his number with the Colts, number 18. He won a Super Bowl with the Colts, then later on had a good defense with Denver and won a Super Bowl with Denver and got 2 rings in his career. And Eli got rings too with the New York Giants. So number 18, we will salute Peyton Manning and Roman Gabriel. If you guys have another number 18, and again, I've minimized myself on the screen. There's still the coffee mug there. Our executive producer, JC. Our producers, Alex Nunnery, and our correspondent of the podcast, and also BigJReport.com. We've got a correspondent and contributor, John Gaylor. I never did start the music. Whoop, here we go. Maybe that started a little bit. Obviously, this is Teal Shirt Report podcast. Hey, we appreciate you guys watching on YouTube. We appreciate you listening. Our audio version of the podcast is available at BigJReport.com and many, many other platforms as well. So the Icemen are having a great year. The Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp all of a sudden are 11-3 to start the baseball season as of April the 13th of 2025. This is episode show number 18. So the main thrust of our podcast is the Jacksonville Jaguars. We do discuss North Florida entertainment. The supergroup Chicago been playing for decades. I think they've been touring. I think I heard a report they've been touring since 1968. And they're in Northeast Florida today, in fact, on April the 13th. Man, I'd love to be at that show. I'm not going to make it, but Chicago's made it since 1968. That is truly a group that has been around basically my entire life. And I was more of a Chicago guy than a Beach Boys guy. I liked the Beach Boys, a couple of their songs, but I was really more into Chicago than the Beach Boys. I like the Beatles, Paul McCartney, John Lennon's solo work. If you want to hear some great music, go to Mad Max and the madmaxmix.weebly.com. Wednesday nights, there's something always on that channel 24/7. The madmaxmix.weebly.com. The Max's show is on Wednesday night. Mad Max, one of our sponsors of the Teal Shirt Report podcast, and BigJReport.com. Max's show is on Wednesday evenings from 6 till 8. Central Time, 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock Eastern Time. And Max will interview me probably a couple of times a month. We'll go on Max's show. JC has a really good show live from the pub the very next night on Thursday nights, live from the pub at LakeUFallahits.com. Great internet radio where it's all good. And on these internet entities, there's music and programming going on 24/7, basically every day. The live shows I'm telling you about, Mad Max on Wednesday nights at madmaxmix.weebly.com. That's madmaxmix.weebly.com. And JC's show on LakeUFallahits.com on Thursday nights. JC gets cranked up around 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock p.m. in the evening Eastern Time. They both take requests. Mad Max will give you his number sometime during his show on Wednesday nights at madmaxmix.weebly.com. We'll give you the phone number. You can call him or text him. And JC has a chat box on the Lake Eufaula Hits at LakeUFallahits.com website. So we you guys, man, we appreciate you tuning in to the Teal Shirt Report podcast, Saucerality and Capital. I had a great conversation with Larry the other day. We're going to have lunch soon somewhere in Northeast Florida, somewhere between Jacksonville and Lake City. Maybe we'll hit the Big M, McClenny in between, or somewhere in Jacksonville. A lot of great places to, have lunch or dinner, around the area, of course. Talking about the NFL draft coming up, I do want to discuss it. NFL mock draft seems to change a little bit. Jaguars are in the number 5 slot now. We hear the defensive tackle out of Michigan. I've talked ad nauseum about getting a left tackle, a guy that can be all pro, opposed to Walker Little, who will start. And I don't think Walker Little becomes all pro. Now, I could be wrong, but I think you need a guy at left tackle that could be all pro. I like, and our executive producer does like, Will Campbell out of LSU. And he is slated to be a top 10 pick. The Jags at number 5. Maybe they trade back and get Will at number 7 or number 8, maybe. I don't know. It depends on how bad some of the teams drafting behind the Jaguars are drafting, a little bit further back in the draft. If any of them decide, hey, we want to trade up to get that quarterback we want. Mock drafts are out there. There's no doubt about that. There's a bunch of them. I get really kind of enamored about Yahoo, because Yahoo is, you pull up draft information, Yahoo's top 5 are right there. And it hasn't changed much. Cam Ward, number 1 quarterback, number 1 guy going into the Tennessee Titans. I don't know about that. I think he could make the throws, move around, and he's kind of a new age quarterback. Cam Ward out of Miami. Now, he did make the Miami of Florida Hurricanes a much better team in 2024. There's no doubt about that. He was on a big NIL deal. Number 2 in the draft, Travis Hunter, cornerback wide receiver out of Colorado, maybe slated to go to the Browns now. Shadur Sanders, slated to go to the New York Giants at 3. I kind of laugh at that a little bit, but man, you could pick who you want. Number 4, Armand Mimbu, a guard out of Missouri, could go to the Patriots at number 4. And Yahoo's latest 2025 NFL mock draft has the Jaguars taking Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan. And I'm going to tell you, I've seen the tape on him. I've seen the film on him. He's a run stuffer. He gets it done. He's a hard guy to get through or around. Then there was an edge rusher that everybody likes on social media that I believe is at Penn State now. But Yahoo's got Mason Graham, defensive tackle, going to the Jags. He played his college ball at Michigan. I would prefer left tackle. But if they pick Mason Graham, that's not the worst thing in the world. However, that brings me up to a point that I want to discuss. The first rounders on the Jaguars defense, they've not always hit their potential. And I think some of it is effort. And this is a commentary on my part. I think some of it's effort. Now, Josh Allen got the big contract last year from Balky. They didn't put they didn't follow through with any kind of franchise tag on him. They went ahead and gave him the money. Balky did, just like Balky gave Walker Little an extension toward the end of last year. After Cam Robinson was traded to Minnesota, now I think he's even on another team. But when he got traded to Minnesota, hey, we signed somebody. We got to sign somebody. So they did sign Walker Little. Of course, these contracts, they might not last for long. You know how that goes. The NFL, not for long, right? So give me a moment here. Here we go. Okay. So you're listening to the Teal Shirt Report podcast from BigJReport.com. Thank you guys for tuning in. I really do appreciate you tuning in. Our executive producer likes Will Campbell out of LSU. I wouldn't mind the Jags taking him at number 5. I really wouldn't. They trade back. Maybe he's still there at 7 or 8. Balky took a huge chance, I think, when he traded back from 18 to 23 and Brian Thomas Jr. was still there last year in the 2024 draft. Here at the tail end of April, and we're, less than 2 weeks away from the NFL draft that will be held in Green Bay, Wisconsin, of all places. I'm looking over at some of my notes. Pete Rose, 4,256 hits, the baseball hit king. I saw a post on Facebook, and there were pictures of the 1976 Cincinnati Reds team. And when the manager, Sparky Anderson, made the move to put George Foster out in left field and move Pete Rose to third base, that was the best offensive team I think they ever had. Tony Perez at first, Joe Morgan at second, Dave Concepcion at short, Pete Rose at third. Johnny Bench, best catcher, in my opinion, of all time behind the plate, who packed a lot of power. He could hit home runs. And I think he threw out a vast percentage of potential Steelers that tried to steal second base. Johnny was great, had a great arm, great position behind the plate. Outfield, you had Ken Griffey's dad, Ken Griffey Sr. in right field, Cesar Geronimo in center field. In left field, George Foster with the black bat. And 1 year he hit 50 home runs. Pete Rose moves to third base. Eventually he would leave for the Philadelphia Phillies. He won world titles with Cincinnati and Philadelphia. And Pete ended up his career 4,256 hits, still not in the Hall of Fame. And sadly, if he ever gets in the Hall of Fame, it's going to be posthumously, right? Because he did pass away a few months back. Wow. So that's back when baseball was baseball. I still follow baseball. I'm still an Atlanta Braves fan. Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp in AAA baseball. Great to have AAA baseball in Jacksonville. The Jumbo Shrimp now 11-3 as of Sunday, April the 13th. We do appreciate you guys tuning into the Teal Shirt Report podcast. We're about 23 minutes in now. I didn't discuss it much, but let's get back to the defensive first rounders for the Jaguars. I'm looking at this thing and you're saying, well, the Jaguars defense has had, 3 different, they've now signed, the new head coach, Liam Cohen, as a new defensive coordinator. What's his name? Anthony Campanelli, young guy. Well, they're all young. All the OC, the DC, they're young guys. Anthony might be one of the older guys, actually, Anthony Campanelli. But when you look back at the grand scheme of things, this defense has gone through many defensive coordinators, just like Trevor Lawrence has gone through a lot of offensive coordinators. On defense, Josh Allen got the money, but his sack total dropped substantially from 17 and a half sacks. Then he got the big contract. And last year, what was he at, 8 or 9, I think? I don't have the stat in front of me, but it was either 8 or 9, I believe. So Very, 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 very interesting, this whole thing. These three first rounders, I think it's a big key to this team. It kind of irritates me. They need more effort out of these guys, and I hope Anthony Campanelli can bring it out of them, the new defensive coordinator. Because if he can't, I don't think anybody can, because they've gone through three defensive coordinators in like the last 3 or 4 years, right? And for whatever reason, the defensive coordinators, it didn't work out. But, I'm looking at this thing and I'm saying, one thing I'll say about Gladstone and the Gladstones, when I say the Gladstones, I kind of mean James Gladstone, the GM, Tony Baselli, the executive vice president of football operations, and then you got Liam Cohen, the head coach. Anthony Campanelli is the defensive coordinator. And you got Grant, what's the guy's name? Grant Yamensky is the offensive coordinator, and he's probably the youngest guy at 29. The head coach Liam Cohen is 34? No, Liam is 39, right? I think Liam is 39, but the general manager, the general manager, James Gladstone, is 34. I'll have to get age is only a number, but let's just say it like this. They're all young guys. And I've had some people in the Facebook group say, hey, that's not a bad thing. You got new ideas, fresh energy. So you have to look at it from a positive standpoint at this point, because this is what Shad Khan has done. The three guys on defense, these are players that were drafted in the first round. Josh Allen. Now, the thing about Josh Allen, I always thought he was a tackling machine coming out of Kentucky. He's gotten sacks. I'm not seeing the tackling, as many tackles as I thought we'd get out of Josh. I think he could still improve his game, and maybe it starts with effort. I don't know, and you can leave it in the comments. I never really heard why Josh Allen took off the last game and didn't play. Was maybe there, nagging injury, or a personal thing he was going through, or whatever I didn't ever hear why he just, hey, I'm not playing the last game. But I'm sure he had a good reason, I'm assuming. I have an issue. I watched the games. I watched all the games. I'm going to say Devin Lloyd was not offered the 5th-year option, but he's got another year left on his contract, his 4th year, still in his rookie deal. This is a huge year for Devin Lloyd to get his game right. The last 2 games of the season, he did have an interception, and then he had a sack. He played pretty good the last 2 games, but man, he's got to put a full season together of effort and havoc. These defensive guys got to cause some havoc. They got to muster up some effort, some extra effort. Trayvon Walker was given a 5th year. They exercised their 5th year option on Trayvon Walker, but he's not gotten a new contract. I think this is a big year, and I think General Manager James Gladstone and the Gladstones, Tony Baselli, the Executive Vice President of Football Operations, and head coach Liam Cohen, I think they're handling these players properly. They got to prove it. This is a huge year, and I've even heard Liam Cohen quoted as, hey, we want to win every game. They're going to get a mulligan the first year. They have a losing season. They're still going to all be back the second year of the regime. However, it comes down to more wins than losses. Whether it's the first year, the second year, I think this regime will probably be together at least 4 years. At least the Gladstones, the GM, James Gladstone, Liam Cohen, and Tony Baselli, the Executive Vice President of Football Operations. Those 3 guys will be around, I believe, for at least the next 4 years. If one of the coordinators does really, really well, maybe he's off to somewhere else. And that happens because coordinators, typically, what do they last? 1, 2, 3 years at the most with a team, unless they're really a good coordinator and that's what they want to do. So the 3 guys on defense, the reason why I'm talking about them is Devin Lloyd did not have his 5th-year option extended. He's in his 4th year, his rookie deal. Jaguars did not pick up his fifth-year option, so he could be a free agent after this year. So this is huge for him personally. I think for all three of these guys, Trayvon Walker, Devin Lloyd, and Josh Allen, this is big for their career. Josh Allen has gotten substantially more money than the other two, but he's been around longer than the other two. He had, a 17 and a half sack season 2 years ago. But last year he was down to, 8 or 9 sacks, and he really didn't even play the last game. The reason why I bring up these first-round draft picks, Devin Lloyd, Balky, the former GM, traded up to get Devin Lloyd, kind of late in the first round. Trayvon Walker was a numero uno, number 1 overall pick the year after Trevor Lawrence was drafted. So let's see, Trayvon Walker was drafted in 2022. His fifth-year option has been picked up for the Jaguars. So he'll be with the Jaguars the next 2 years, in 2025 and 2026. Balky kind of did the same thing with quarterback Trevor Lawrence, and then all of a sudden he gave him the multi-year contract, like a few weeks later, I believe. So the reason why I'm bringing up these, I'm not really trying to, and I have some. I have, kind of talked in a tough way about Devin Lloyd, Trayvon Walker, and Josh Allen, because I think you can get more. I think there's an effort situation where the new defensive coordinator, Anthony Campanelli, he's got to get more effort out of these guys. The scheme has got to be good, obviously. It's got to be to their liking. The first year Trayvon Walker was in the league, man, they had him dropping into pass coverage. I thought that was crazy. But that's what they were doing, and that's what some teams do. I think he's more of a inside player that plays defensive end. He's got to improve his game because, I watched the game against the Texans where Laramie Tunsil, he couldn't get around Laramie Tunsil for almost a half of football. And then you saw Trayvon Walker, instead of staying at the left end position and trying to go around Tunsil because he couldn't, then he was moving around and trying to go up the middle. Maybe he needs to play near up the middle all the time, and maybe he needs to play inside more, like Eric Armstead wants to do. So maybe you have enough players not to even have to draft a Michigan guy, but he's a great run stuffer. The reason why I want to draft a left tackle is because I want a shot at having an all-pro left tackle. Is Walker Little an all-pro potential candidate? Maybe, but maybe, probably not. So that's my opinion. I don't have a problem with the Michigan guy being drafted 5th overall, but I would prefer a left tackle there. I think I called Tate Rutledge in the last podcast. Tate Ratledge is a guard out of Georgia that I like. I wouldn't mind the Jags picking him in the 2nd or 3rd round. Somebody's going to grab him. He's going to be a good guard in the NFL. The Jags have signed some guys in free agency. The backup center for the Bucks, who started, I think, the year before. They signed, the guy that can play almost every position on the offensive line from the Baltimore Ravens, and he did play in 17 games last year, and he's slotted to be the right guard. Patrick, what's Patrick's last name? Let me pull. We did write some stuff up in bigjreport.com about him. I think he's a key player. He's a guy that James Gladstone likes a good bit. This is Gladstone, he's interesting on his choice of words. He calls it pro free agency, right? Opposed to the college draft of college players. Florida Gators, man, they're still celebrating the national championship, 65-63 win over Houston back on Monday night, April the 7th of 2025 in the championship game of college basketball. Okay, again, Jags news and notes. Among the free agents the Jaguars have signed include former Baltimore Ravens offensive lineman Patrick McCary. It has been said the versatile McCary can line up and play almost every position across the offensive line. I think he'll be slated to play right guard for the Jaguars. However, these free agents the Jags have signed in the past, and you know the ones I'm talking about that have been signed on the offensive line. Some have been okay. Some have been, better than okay. Some have been good. Some have been very disappointing in free agency. This is an opportunity to finally get the offensive line solid. Let them fight it out in training camp. But this is a chance now to get the offensive line right, because if Trevor Lawrence doesn't have the protection, the offensive line doesn't get any better, because you're only essentially going to have 5 guys out there plus a tight end, whoever those 5 guys are. Well, and McCary will be out there apparently starting at right guard. But what I'm saying is draft a left tackle, draft a guard, let the best guys win in training camp. This is an opportunity to finally get the offensive line right for Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has been hurt and missed substantial games each of the last 2 years. And that's part of why this team's not in the playoffs. And another part of the reason why they're not in the playoffs is because of the defense, the effort, the problems on defense. I'm going to tell you right now, the defensive backs, and these were later round picks, the defensive backs, you're seeing a lot of effort out of the third rounder out of Florida State. AJ, what's his name? Antonio Johnson out of Texas A&M. This will be his 3rd year, I believe. And Buster Brown, I think it's Montarius Brown. Buster Brown, man, he plays hard. These late round defensive backs, they play hard. And I think the first round Jaguars players on defense, we need to see them play just as hard as the late round defensive backs, who really don't, allegedly have as much talent as the first rounders, like the Devin Lloyds, who've been drafted. Devin Lloyd was drafted by Balky. Trayvon Walker, drafted number 1 overall, and I think maybe he's a 2nd or 3rd round talent at best. He's got a lot to prove. We need to see more havoc on the defense from Trayvon Walker. Devin Lloyd in his 4th year, he didn't even get his 5th-year option picked up. That ought to tell him something, man. Look in the mirror. Got to see a lot of effort out of Devin Lloyd in 2025, not just for the team, but for his career. Trayvon Walker, number 1 overall, man. We need more havoc. Sacks are nice, but play inside, man. Become a wrecking ball. Some havoc. Can Trayvon Walker move laterally well enough to become a star in the NFL? The Jags picked up his 5th-year option, and I respect that. I don't have a problem with that. Trayvon has done some good things, 10 sacks, 10.5 sacks. But we need to see more havoc, more tackles. This defense needs to play better. I'm not sure you have to draft a defensive tackle out of Michigan, but it'd be nice to have him, no doubt. But Eric Armstead, you've got him still on the roster. He wants to move inside and play more inside. I think Trayvon Walker should be playing more inside. I think there's draft picks out there in the middle rounds you can find for defense. I'm saying, and I don't think you need a flashy pick either. I think you need some offensive linemen still. You need to get this thing right on the offensive line. Otherwise, Trevor gets hurt again, and then you're not going anywhere. We do know the Jaguars did sign Mr. Mullins. What's his name? Nick Mullins. He used to play with the 49ers. He started a lot of games. He's the new backup. Mac Jones has gone to San Francisco. And Mac said a few things going out the door. He didn't put the Jaguars brass or the Jaguars franchise on a pedestal from his hometown. No, he's moving to San Francisco, where a lot of people, including our executive producer, thought the 49ers might have drafted Mac Jones way back when he was drafted. But they went a different route, and that guy is no longer on the 49ers team either. The NFL draft, man, it's a crapshoot. It really is, but I think you draft offensive linemen. You've got some free agents on the offensive line. Get the best ones playing. There's going to be injuries, but, man, this is a chance to finally – because you got a 5th overall pick. Then you're going to pick high again in the second round. You got 10 picks to find other guys from other positions. I do like the defensive backs that the Jaguars have assembled from the late rounds. You know why? Because they play hard. And I think AJ Antonio Johnson out of Texas A&M plays hard. Buster Brown does. Buster Brown is a guy that maybe doesn't have as much talent as other people. You already got Tyson Campbell, on this roster to play cornerback. You signed another cornerback in free agency that used to play for, I believe, Dallas. It's going to be interesting. A lot of players coming and going. Cisco is gone. He signed with another team. So Andre Cisco no longer a part of the Jaguars. He's moved on, signed with a new team in free agency. And we certainly have been writing about it in the sports section at bigjreport.com. So I still believe the offensive line has some work to do. I really do. I believe the O-line has some work to do. These first rounders the Jags have picked in the first round, Jags traded up to get Devin Lloyd. It's time for these guys to shine. It's time for the players. Now, you've heard Liam Cohen say players over plays. Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. It's time for the players to take responsibility, give you the effort, no matter what the scheme is. I mean, these defensive players, they've absolutely had, 3 defensive coordinators in the last 3 or 4 years. Is it the defensive coordinator? Or is it the players? Anthony Campanelli's got the new defensive coordinator for the Jaguars, has to get more out of them, or it's a lost cause. Why did you draft these guys in the first round? Josh Allen has a lot of potential, and he's played mighty good at times. Gosh, he had a 17.5 sack season in 2023. What happened in 2024? The sacks went down nearly 40 or 50% for Mr. Josh Allen. Then he didn't play in the last game. You got Trayvon Walker, man. Laramie Tunsil. Trayvon was getting blocked in a lot of these games. He still ended up with 10.5 sacks. He couldn't get around Laramie Tunsil in the last game with the Texans. He couldn't get around him. The best thing for Trayvon Walker is Laramie Tunsil's no longer a member of the Texans. He's moved on to another team too. I believe the Texans traded him for some picks or something. So that is my thought on it. Also, I do want to talk about North Florida Entertainment. We've talked about the Jumbo Shrimp off to an 11-3 start. The Icemen heading into the East Coast Hockey League playoffs in the next few days. And North Florida Entertainment. And the one thing I can say about the first rounders on the Jags defense, they got an opportunity. I believe they're all going to be on the team. They're all going to be in the starting lineup. It's time to shine. I may have been tough on them, but, I've watched football a long time, and that's what I've seen. I believe it's the effort. These guys are making money, huge money, all of them. Josh Allen, certainly a lot more. It's time for him to shine. You might have enough players on defense, especially with, free agent signings. And you're going to get some defense. Even if you go offensive line first 2 picks, you're still going to have defensive players in the early to middle to late rounds. You got 10 picks, Mr. Gladstone. They may go defensive tackle with that number 5 pick. We'll see. Nobody knows. Mr. Gladstone is going to pull the trigger along with the rest of the Gladstones. Tony Baselli, the executive vice president of football operations, Liam Cohen will be there. And I got a pretty good idea that Shad Khan will be right there in the draft room too. I know he will be. He usually always is. We'll take a look at some North Florida entertainment. The group Chicago performing at the St. Augustine, Florida Amphitheater. on Sunday, April the 13th of 2025. Hey, that's today, 7:30 tonight in St. Augustine at the St. Augustine, Florida Amp, or the St. Augustine, Florida Amphitheater, Sunday, April the 13th of 2025 at 7:30 p.m. The Gene Simmons Band performing at the Florida Theater in Jacksonville, Florida, originally scheduled for April the 29th of 25. April the 29th of 2025. That show coming up in a few days has been sadly canceled or postponed according to the Florida Theater box office here in Jacksonville, Florida. Also, Rick Springfield will be coming to the St. Augustine Amphitheater. Man, that's one of our executive producer JC's favorites. Rick Springfield. What was his name with the soap opera? Dr. Noah something, right? And JC says, man, he's still looking young, but he's a good bit older now. But Rick Springfield coming to the St. Augustine Amphitheater, St. Augustine, Florida Amphitheater. Tickets for Rick Springfield. I Want My 80s Tour featuring Rick Springfield, John Waite, Wang Chung, Dance All Days, and John Cafferty. It's going to be on May 29th of 2025 at the St. Augustine Amphitheater. These tickets are on sale now while they last. Also, Brad Paisley, country singer. Brad Paisley will be in concert in St. Augustine, Florida on Saturday, August the 2nd of 2025 at 7:30 p.m. at the St. Augustine Amphitheater in St. Augustine, Florida. That's Brad Paisley on Saturday, August the 2nd of 2025 at 7:30 p.m. again at the St. Augustine Amphitheater. Also, I read across this one. There's some other shows. We don't post all the shows, but I normally will post one I would be interested in going to see, or one that I like or that I'd like to recommend to you. This may be the final opportunity. And I say that because we're talking about people. Some people pass away. They get a little later in life and they pass away. All the Monkees have passed away except for Mickey Dolenz now. I remember the Monkees in the 1970s. I think their TV show started, I'm pretty sure, in the late 1960s somewhere. I forget the year, but they were on primetime TV on a weekday night. But I was too young to watch that then. I remember the Monkees. They put them in repeats in the 1970s on Saturday mornings. That was really my first. That was really my first introduction to the Monkees. And I would really probably like to go to this. Actually, I probably won't, but I'd probably like to go to this. Also, another good event: tickets for Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees. This show is going to feature songs and stories. I might like the stories even better. Tickets for Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees, songs and stories. It will be held at the Florida Theater on December the 5th of 2025. Those tickets are on sale now. This might be the final opportunity to see Brother Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees, the final surviving monkey, right? Absolutely the final surviving monkey. Man. So, Mickey Dolenz, he was always a drummer, the Monkees, but he sings, and I'm sure he's putting a Monkees band together of new players. That's going to be interesting. The Monkees, or actually Mickey Dolenz with songs and stories of the Monkees, right? Hey, thank you for tuning in to the Teal Shirt Report podcast. I minimized myself on the screen. We wanted to really solidify Big J Report. And we're doing, a little bit of experimenting and things like that as well. So, hey, there I am. We appreciate you guys tuning in to the Teal Shirt Report podcast. This has been episode show number 18. I think we've done some other 18, so this probably will be the last 18 this go around in season number 6 of the Teal Shirt Report podcast. But we have not quite been doing the YouTube channel for a year yet, I don't believe. But this is the 6th season of our podcast, the Teal Shirt Report podcast. I want to thank our sponsors of the Teal Shirt Report podcast: Salsa Realty and Capital, the MadMaxMix.weebly.com. Check Max out on Wednesday nights. Hey, also check JC out Thursday nights at LakeUvalleHits.com. Great internet radio where it's all good. JC live from the pub on Thursday nights, and Saucer Realty and Capital for your real estate needs. Hey, right here in North Florida. And, Larry sells homes, buys and sells for your real estate needs, whether it's home, residential, business, or commercial real estate. Whether it's here in Jacksonville, Lake City, Live Oak, Gainesville, or even a little bit of a line south of there. Remember, Saucer Realty and Capital. There's a link to Saucer Realty and Capital's website on our homepage near our 24 North region. Beautiful weather in Jacksonville. I'm looking at the window, sunshine, nothing but sunshine in the 9 o'clock hour here on April the 13th of 2025. High temperature is going to get up to around 75 or probably 76 degrees. Low temperature this morning did dip. Probably the final cool snap of the season here in April. For a very brief time, we got down to 48 here in Jacksonville, Florida. Thank you for tuning into the Teal Shirt Report podcast. We got a little lengthy here. Oh, the orange and blue game was played. The orange and blue game was absolutely played. The blue team won. There were over 56,000 people in Gainesville on Saturday, April the 12th for the orange and blue game, the game in which the blue won. 56,563 in attendance for the orange and blue game down in Gainesville. I believe Georgia had their G-Day game. Georgia had a lot of spring injuries going into their spring G-Day game. Also, I wanted to mention that, the STC network has been talking about, they've been talking about the top 5 quarterbacks. And they got DJ, I'm not going to talk at nauseum about it though, but they got DJ Lagway right at the top. Arch Manning is probably second or third. I'm going to pull out the list on the next podcast. But it's interesting. I mean, the stories we're getting, about Lagway being hurt, the story we're getting now on Florida Gator quarterback DJ Lagway is he should be, in the next few weeks, should be at 100%. He's going to be at 100% well before the season starts. And if he's available to the Gators, he's 100%. Florida's got a chance. They got a chance. They've got some, and you know that Coach Billy Napier's been getting some pretty good recruits, some wide receivers for Lagway, and a lot of them want to play with Lagway. He's got that great wrist action, snap throw. And if Lagway's 100%, yes, Florida can be a contender in the SEC and could have a shot at making the playoff in college football in 2025. It'll be exciting. We'll cover it. This is the Teal Shirt Report podcast. We talk about the Jaguars, North Florida Entertainment, the SEC. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. Please give me a thumbs up. And if you absolutely would, subscribe to the channel. Okay? Subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up. Got any comments about what we've talked about? Where should the Jaguars go in the draft? Will the Jaguars be successful with the new regime? For me, if they win more than they lose, they're going to be successful. That's what it comes down to. You got to win the close games. The games, most of them in the NFL have been close, especially the Jaguars have lost a lot of close games. It comes down to razor's edge, wins and losses. You got to win the close games. There's going to be a blowout, 2 or 3 during a season, but other than that, they're close games. The majority of them decided in the fourth quarter. The goal I have for the Jaguars is to win more than you lose, win more games than you lose, and make the playoffs at least twice in the next 4 years. Otherwise, this whole thing is a bust. I'm Scott with the Teal Shirt Report podcast. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. You guys absolutely have a great day. I appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. And if you subscribe to the channel, you will make my day. Thank you very much. My name's Scott, and I'm out. You guys have a great day. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Duval, go Gators.